Well, another embarrassing episode for the president has occurred. When you believe so many things that are wrong, just like misinformation, you have all the facts wrong. When you believe in so many conspiracy theories and you run for president and you make promises based on these wrong beliefs, it's just a matter of time before it starts to come crashing down on you. This was so predictable. So many of us predicted this. We knew 80% of Americans would know that this was going to happen when Trump came out and said he's going to abolish FEMA, or he's thinking about abolishing FEMA. We were like, "What are you talking about? Abolishing FEMA? Why?" Look, I understand their point. Maybe they want to give more responsibility to the states to handle the money that the federal government has for these disasters. Fine. If that's what you want to do, that's something you can think about and talk about, but you got to work with the states on these things long before you do it. You can't just throw a chainsaw, an Elon Musk chainsaw into the works and have the whole thing come crashing down. The first disaster that comes along will be even a worse disaster. And that's exactly what's happened in Texas. It was a worse disaster than it needed to be. More people died than would have died had FEMA been operating as it did in the past. The good news is apparently they've gotten that message. And the article in the Washington Post today says that the administration is moving away from abolishing FEMA. That's great news because abolishing it was idiotic. Only the most ignorant people could have thought that was a good idea. Anyway, as the president visits Texas to see the impact of last week's deadly flash floods, the White House has backed away from plans to abolish the agency. Very good news indeed. But what an embarrassment for the president, and what an embarrassment for the administration. They're surely going to pay a big price for this someday. All right, jumping in. For months, President Donald Trump and his Homeland Security Secretary have said that FEMA could be eliminated. But as the president visited Texas to view the impact of last week's deadly floods, administration officials say abolishing the agency outright is no longer on the agenda. They're acting like they never said that. Oh, what are you talking about? That's not on the agenda. Gaslighting again. A senior White House official told the Washington Post that no official action is being taken to wind down FEMA, and the changes in the agency will probably amount to a rebranding that will emphasize state leaders' roles in disaster response. That's fine. If you want to change the way the agency's working, that's something I think every American is open to talking about. If you can make things more efficient, make them work better, then by all means, talk about it and let's get it done. But you don't just cut everything off without giving the states proper time to prepare for the new system. He's doing the exact same thing to American states as he's done to our foreign allies around the world. Just, oh, we don't like you anymore. Tariffs. We don't need you. You need us. We don't need you. You've been cheating us all this time. You got to step up and pay your fair share now. He's doing the exact same thing to the states, basically saying the states need to step up and pay their fair share, saying that the states, like he's saying to our NATO allies, you got to pay, you got to pay, you got to pay. He's saying that doing the same thing to the states. It's crazy. These are the American states. I understand doing it to NATO. That's great if we can get them to pay more. I'm all for that. Who's not? They should be paying more. But to treat our states the same way as we're treating foreign countries, that's crazy. All right. Let's see. The president immediately delivered. Okay, so now they're just trying to they're getting defensive. They're trying to make out like nothing wrong happened in Texas. The president immediately delivered the dollars. Texas already has that money in their hands, and Governor Abbott is the lead decision maker when it comes to the Texas floods. An official said, "You should expect this structure that has quietly taken place to continue." Oh, great. So the structure that just got more people killed than were necessary than would have been killed in the past, he's saying that's going to continue. It's just unbelievable. Unbelievable. Trump and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem in recent months raised the prospect that the agency could be abolished altogether. In describing an executive order on FEMA shortly after he took office, Trump said FEMA would begin the process of fundamentally reforming and overhauling. Oh, sorry, wait, what? Oh, the executive order. Sorry, I didn't connect what the word it was referring to. In describing an executive order on FEMA shortly after he took office, Trump said the executive order, would begin the process of fundamentally reforming and overhauling FEMA, or maybe getting rid of FEMA. No, nobody said we're going to get rid of FEMA. He said at the time, he said, I think, frankly, FEMA's not good. The FEMA thing has not been a very successful experiment. Really? Compared to what? Compared to nothing? It's been very successful compared to nothing. I agree. There's some things FEMA could do better and get rid of some of the red tape and all that. I have friends whose homes were lost in Hurricane Sandy, and FEMA came in and said, "We'll take care of it. No problem. No problem. No problem." It was literally 10 years before they got their new homes, and the government did take care of it, but it took 10 years. So yeah, there are problems there. But to say the way to solve the problems is just to destroy the whole agency and throw the whole thing out and not have anything to replace it with, repeal and replace like they were going to do with healthcare, but there was never any replacement. So they decided not to repeal. They should have decided not to repeal FEMA either. Okay, Abigail Jackson, a White House spokeswoman, said federal resources are intended to supplement state actions, not replace those actions. She said, adding that FEMA's outsized role created a bloated bureaucracy that disincentivized state investment in their own resilience. Well, two things to say there. It's not only about money, but it's also about um, how you say action. FEMA had the ability to perform certain acts before a disaster struck that would minimize the impact of the disaster, and they were prevented from doing those things in this case. They, you know, they were unable to help arrange for aerial search and rescue, and they were not able to coordinate with groups on the ground before the storm hit that would be instrumental in helping with search and rescue because Kristi Noem didn't authorize the money until 3 days later. But here's the big thing. I think they saw on the ground that things are bad and we probably should have done better. I think maybe somewhere in the back of their minds, they have an inkling that that could be the case, I hope. But if not, polling helps out. This will knock them for a loop. Polling indicates that a large majority of Americans support the federal government helping communities recover from natural disasters. Now listen to this. 8 in 10 Americans, 80%, that's an overwhelming majority of Americans, said the federal government should have a major role in providing aid to communities in the aftermath of natural disasters. Of course, but get this, that includes 80% of Republicans and 87% of Democrats. Asked about rebuilding communities affected by disasters, 74% of Americans said the federal government should have a major role in rebuilding. So bring it back. America's screaming, bring FEMA back. They do not need these negative headlines. Unbelievable. Ugh. What happened was they didn't have a chance to close the agency down before this storm, so they basically withheld funds from it until it was way too late. Anyway, this is a state representative from North Carolina. He said, "I think we could handle in large part what FEMA's job is if we had some federal monetary help. We could set up the systems here." Now that's probably true. States could probably do more, but go work this out with the states before you cut back on FEMA. You got to work it out with them. You got to tell them this is what's coming. Prepare for this. Can you handle this? Because not all states can. At the same time, many state leaders believe a strong federal role is needed to help coordinate disaster response. Some communities and states don't have the resources to lead all aspects of disaster responses. That's right. That's the problem. Look, the federal government getting involved in this, it's kind of like insurance companies. Insurance companies take large groups of people who are under, various kinds of risk, maybe car insurance, so risk of losing your car, health insurance, risk of medical bills, and they take millions of people, put them together, pool their money, and then for the much fewer number of people who actually need help, they take from that large pool that no individual person and no group of people that individuals could put together could ever possibly be able to pay. No group of churches would ever be able to pay such a thing. A lot of Christians say, well, all the churches should do these things. Uh, they can't. Not in today's society. It's too modern. Things are too sophisticated and way, way too expensive for churches to be able to handle. So yeah, but it's not all about money. It's also about that help, the skilled help that FEMA was able to bring to bear in disasters. So, but the federal government was basically like a big giant insurance company that could handle the expense when the expenses got huge. They're in the hundreds of billions of dollars, some of these disasters, and the tens of billions of dollars. And no state can handle that. So they need that larger pool of money that can only come from the federal government. Anyway, I'm glad they're kind of coming to their senses on this. Let's wish them the best in that respect and give them a little support on that and hold their feet to the fire on all the other wacky things they're doing, especially immigration. This immigration stuff they're doing has really got to stop. That I'm telling you, that's going to have an 80% disapproval rating as well. Anyway, that's it for this, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching.